Cinderella met a lovely fellow, Prince Charming, at the ball. The ugly sisters with their warts and blisters used to make her scrub and crawl. I'll tell her tale for one and all. Cinderella.
This is the story of Cinderella. Once upon a time, many moons ago, there was a gentleman called Baron Hardup, who had a very charming lady for his wife. They had a daughter whose name was Ella. She was a very good girl and always dutiful towards her doting parents. But sadly, Ella's mother died, causing much grief to her and her dear father. However, after 2 years had passed, Baron Hardup married another woman. The main reason the new wife was attracted to him was because he bore the title Baron.
Oh, I'm married to a baron.
His new wife's name was Hyacinth, and she was so full of airs and graces that she looked down on anyone she deemed working class.
Oh, look at her.
She had 2 unattractive grown-up daughters called Griselda and Imelda.
Oh, I'm wonderful. Not as wonderful as I...
Like their mother, they were social climbers of the highest order. They would do anything in their power to climb to the top of the social ladder. In fact, their ambition was to marry into royalty. The Baron's beautiful daughter Ella suffered greatly at the hands of these 3 harridans. They were jealous of her good looks, her charming nature, and her ability to get on with everyone around her. Griselda and Imelda particularly hated her. They pushed her around and made her do all the chores around Hardup Hall, where they all lived in relative poverty, due to the spendthrift ways of the Baron's insatiably greedy new wife.
You like my new hat?
The Baron's manservant, Buttons, was the only one to recognize poor Ella's plight. Griselda and Imelda, whom Buttons called the ugly sisters, forced their poor stepsister to clean the chimneys every day,
Up the chimney now.
causing her clothes to be covered in cinders. "Oh, look, Ella's covered in cinders," remarked Griselda. "That's what we'll call her, Cinderella." "Aha! Cinderella! I think that name has a ring to it," Imelda noted, laughing at the newly renamed Cinderella's expense. The 2 ugly sisters and their insidious mother, Hyacinth, continued to laugh with all their might. When they left the room, Buttons consoled poor Cinderella. "Don't worry, they'll get their comeuppance. What goes around comes around," he added, as Cinderella sobbed into her handkerchief. "Why, thank you, Buttons, you're so kind," said Cinderella, "but I'll believe it when I see it." The next morning there was a knock on the door of Hardup Hall. Hyacinth answered, to be greeted by a messenger from the king's palace. "I bring you invitations to a grand ball," said the messenger. "King Charles is throwing the ball in aid of his son, Prince Charming, for he wants him to find a suitable wife who will look after the heir to the throne." "Ooh, heir to the throne," said Hyacinth. "Who are the invitations for?" she asked, whilst visualizing one of her daughters on the throne next to the handsome Prince Charming. The messenger replied, "I have 3 invitations, one for Griselda, one for Imelda, and one for a young lady known as Ella." "Oh, Ella left many moons ago, without so much as a by your leave," said Hyacinth. "But I'll take the 3 invitations just the same. If Ella does return, she will get her invitation." But in the meantime, I'll give the other two to the beautiful Griselda and Imelda." The messenger, satisfied that his job had been done, set off on his horse to deliver the rest of the invitations to the other young ladies of the kingdom. At last the big day arrived. The ugly sisters, Griselda and Imelda, set off to the ball in high spirits, but looking like mutton dressed as lamb. Griselda wore a bright, sickly green frock, so ill-fitting that her flabby stomach caused the garment to burst at the seams. Her bright blue smudged lipstick seemed to highlight her blackened teeth and her unkempt prickly moustache. Imelda wore a garish pink satin ball gown that was also too tight for her portly frame. As they left in Baron Hardup's horse-drawn carriage, Cinderella broke down and began to cry. "Don't worry," said Buttons to Cinderella. "We can have a ball of our own. Look, I have prepared some ginger beer and cucumber sandwiches."
Oh, Buttons.
"I really appreciate your trying to cheer me up," said Cinderella, as she politely sipped at the ginger beer and nibbled the slightly stale cucumber sandwiches. "I brought my flute. I can play you a tune, so we can dance and sing along and pretend we're at the royal ball," said Buttons. And as the two of them danced for an hour or more, Cinderella began to accept that she was never destined to go to the ball. She also came to appreciate that the finer things in life did not come from being rich, but from the heart as someone as humble as the kindly Buttons. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking at the door of Hardup Hall. Baron Hardup burst into the room and ordered Buttons to answer the door.
"Whoever it is, send them away. I am busy reading my papers, and I do not wish to be interrupted. Also, I would appreciate it if you would stop dancing around and playing music. I need peace to concentrate on all things important to me."
"No problem," said Buttons as he left to answer the door. Cinderella and her father, Baron Hardup, had a brief but reflective moment.
"I am sorry you were not able to attend the royal ball," said Baron Hardup, "but you must accept your fate, as I must accept mine. We are both lumbered with Hyacinth, Griselda, and Imelda, and unless our fortunes change dramatically, we will have to endure them for the rest of our lives."
On that note, Baron Hardup briefly hugged his confused daughter before returning to read his papers.
"Thank you, Daddy."
Shortly afterwards, Buttons returned with an old woman at his side. "Who are you?" inquired Cinderella.
"I am your fairy godmother," said the old woman, who twirled 3 times, thus transforming herself into a beautiful fairy with huge white wings, a long sparkling magic wand, and a little halo that hovered just above her beehive of blonde hair. "My fairy godmother? This is extraordinary. What brings you here?" asked a bedazzled Cinderella. "What is the thing you most wish for on this night of all nights?" asked the fairy godmother. "If the truth were known," whispered Cinderella, "I wish I could go to the ball." "I was summoned here by the force of magic," said the fairy godmother, "and believe me, Cinderella, you shall go to the ball." Without hesitation, with her magic wand, she conjured up an invitation to the ball. Cinderella's name was written across it in gold and endorsed by the king's signature. "Oh, this is wonderful," said Cinderella. "But alas, I don't have any clothes to wear to the ball."
The fairy godmother again waved her magic wand, causing Cinderella's old rags to be transformed into the most beautiful ball gown ever seen. What's more, her scruffy, soot-ridden shoes were replaced by a pair of gorgeous crystal glass slippers. "Oh, this is marvellous!" exclaimed Cinderella. "I am very grateful, but alas, I still won't be able to go to the ball, for I have no way of getting there." "Fear not," said the fairy godmother. "I have a solution." On saying that, she opened the window and pointed her magic wand at an old hollow pumpkin that had been lying in the courtyard since Halloween. A flash of light suddenly surrounded the pumpkin that mysteriously morphed into the most beautiful and illustrious carriage Cinderella had ever seen. "Wow," said Cinderella. "Oh, this is marvellous. But I still can't go to the ball, as there is no horse to guide the carriage to the palace." "Fear not," said the fairy godmother again. "You should know by now that I have solutions for such matters." She pointed her magic wand towards a rat that happened to be scurrying past the carriage, thus transforming it into a beautiful black stallion fit for a princess. "Why, thank you so much," said Cinderella. "This is like a dream come true. But alas, I still can't go to the ball. I have no one to drive the carriage to the palace." "I'll drive you there," said Buttons, "but Baron Hardup hasn't brought me a suit for years." "You don't need to drop hints," said the fairy godmother, with a knowing smile on her kindly face. In no time at all, she had transformed the scruffy-looking Buttons into the most dandy and handsome horseman Cinderella had ever seen. Cinderella cried out in delight and thanked Buttons and her fairy godmother. "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you! My dream has come true." Luckily for Cinderella, Baron Hardup had dozed off in the sitting room and was snoring so loudly that he was not disturbed by Cinderella's excitement.
So happy.
"Hush now, child, you'll wake your father, who is asleep in his chair," said the fairy godmother. Then she waved her wand one more time. Suddenly, Cinderella and Buttons found themselves in the carriage behind the horse, with the fairy godmother standing nearby. "You are now prepared to go to the royal ball in style, my child," said the fairy godmother. "But remember, this is magic, and like all magic spells, they have to wear off at some point. You must remember to leave the palace before the stroke of midnight, for at this moment your beautiful dress will turn back to rags, and the horse and carriage will turn back into the hollow pumpkin and the rat. Your handsome horseman will be plain old Buttons in his scruffy servant attire." "I'll be sure to remember that," said Cinderella. "I shall leave at least 20 minutes before the stroke of midnight in order to give us time to return to Hardup Hall in style." "Goodbye, Cinderella, and good luck," said the fairy godmother, who mysteriously and slowly vanished into thin air. As Buttons guided the horse and carriage towards the palace, people in the street stopped to stare at the magnificent sight. "What a fantastic adventure," said Cinderella. "I shall go to the ball." "I know, it's wonderful," said Buttons. "You look so beautiful and elegant. Once you are there, you will be the belle of the ball." Meanwhile, at the ball, Prince Charming wandered around, introducing himself to the ladies of the kingdom. Although polite and courteous to all of them, he looked visibly antagonized by the two hags who were following him around. Predictably, it was Griselda and Imelda vying and competing for the prince's attention. "Oh, your highness," said Griselda, "I've heard so much about your balls. I hear they get bigger every year. Is this your biggest ball to date?" "He's not interested in you," said Imelda. "It's quite clear he only has eyes for me."
"Dear ladies," said Prince Charming, "thank you for your attention, but I must ask you to leave me in peace, for I have just seen a lady so elegant and so fine that I am compelled to approach her and invite her to dance with me." He was looking towards the ballroom door, where Cinderella had arrived, looking so beautiful and magnificent that she had already managed to steal the prince's heart.
"Who's that, pray?"
said Griselda, oblivious to the fact that the beautiful lady was her downtrodden stepsister, Cinderella.
"I don't know, and I don't care,"
replied Imelda as the prince approached his new potential love.
"He'll soon tire of her," said Griselda. "She's scrawny and not half as glamorous as I." "Too right," said Imelda. "He will tire of her, but it will be me he comes to for the next dance."
The two ugly sisters watched in envy as Prince Charming and the mystery girl danced and danced throughout the night.
"This is your fault. You scared him off with your ridiculous remarks," said Imelda to Griselda. She retorted by saying, "Nonsense! You put him off by making yourself seem too available and cheap."
At this point, the two of them started to fight, ripping each other's clothes to shreds. Their disgraceful behaviour was spotted by the king's footman, who had to separate them and reprimand them for their bad behaviour. The prince and the mystery girl laughed about the unseemly episode as they waltzed across the ballroom, staring lovingly into each other's eyes. "I'm having such a wonderful time," said Cinderella. "So am I," said Prince Charming, who added, "Whatever happens between us, I will savour this moment for the rest of my life."
"Oh, look at them," said Griselda. "They don't look right together." "You're right," said Imelda. "There's something about her that doesn't ring true."
By now, Hyacinth, who had been monitoring the ugly sisters' activities, joined her daughters.
"Try and split them apart," said Hyacinth. "That girl is an imposter."
The irony was that the only imposter there was Hyacinth, who had gained entrance to the ball by passing herself off as Cinderella. Before either of the ugly sisters had the opportunity of breaking the bond between the love-struck prince and the mystery girl, the clock started to strike midnight. "Oh, no!" Cinderella panicked. "I'm so sorry, Prince Charming, but I have to go." And then in haste, she ran away.
"Where are you going?"
shouted the prince. But in fear of her identity being revealed, Cinderella swiftly left the palace. On the way down the steps, Cinderella tripped and lost one of her crystal slippers. Noticing she was once again wearing rags, Cinderella ran on past the palace guards so fast they could not see her face. She saw Buttons waiting next to the hollow pumpkin and the rat. "Come," said Buttons, who was also back in his old clothes. "Let's get back to Hardup Hall before we get caught out."
Yes, of course.
As they ran home, Cinderella told Buttons what had happened between her and the prince. They concluded that it was better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. The next morning, it was business as usual at Hardup Hall. The ugly sisters and their mother forced Cinderella to make breakfast and tidy the house.
Make sure the eggs are very well done.
Finally, they ordered her to clean the chimneys, which always ensured she would look sooty and downtrodden.
"Look at her, the scruffy little urchin," said Griselda. "I know, I'm ashamed to be associated with her," said Imelda. "Can you imagine if she had been allowed to attend the ball last night? She would put us all to shame.
Now, said Baron Hardup, don't be too hard on Cinderella. She knows her place and works so hard.
Stop picking on my wonderful daughters, said Hyacinth. You should have seen them last night at the ball. The prince was all over them like a rash.
Said Baron Hardup doubtfully. I'm sure he was.
And as usual disappeared behind his papers. Unexpectedly there was a loud knock on the door, followed by trumpets playing a regal fanfare. Buttons rushed to answer the door and was surprised to be greeted by a royal messenger, surrounded by guards and trumpeters. "Greetings," said the messenger, who stood at the steps of Hardup Hall, holding the crystal glass slipper Cinderella had lost whilst fleeing from the ball. Cinderella, Baron Hardup, the ugly sisters, and Hyacinth gathered around Buttons at the door.
"What brings you to my humble abode?" inquired the Baron.
"Less of the humble," said Hyacinth. "You are a baron, after all. Why are you holding that glass slipper?"
asked Griselda.
"Why, indeed?" asked Imelda. "There is something very strange going on here," she added, before being interrupted by the irritated messenger.
"If you would let me get a word in edgeways, I will explain, dear lady. Last night, Prince Charming met the love of his life. Unfortunately, she unexpectedly fled from the ball as the clock struck midnight. On leaving, she lost this glass slipper on the palace steps."
"Oh, she's very clumsy then, isn't she?" said Griselda. "Quite right," said Imelda. "But it's very good that the palace's lost property department is so efficient. I presume the prince no longer loves the fool who lost the slipper, but is attempting to return it to her by way of compensation."
"You are wrong," said the messenger. "He intends to marry the lady whose foot fits the slipper."
"Oh," said Griselda. "It's just coming back to me. The slipper is mine. It was I who danced with the prince for the entire duration of the ball."
She grabbed the slipper and tried to force her swollen, hairy foot into it. But inevitably and predictably, Griselda failed to impress upon the messenger that the slipper had anything to do with her.
"The slipper is mine!" cried Imelda. "It was I who danced with Prince Charming. I didn't mention it at first, for I was embarrassed about losing the slipper." She snatched the slipper from Griselda's hand and, like her ugly sister, tried to force her hairy, bunion-ridden foot into it. She sweated profusely and tried every way to get the slipper to fit her.
"Enough is enough. You are not Prince Charming's love," said the messenger, confiscating the slipper from Imelda, who was devastated. She cried and wept into her mother's arms.
"Oh, Mother! I've been deprived of being Prince Charming's love. What am I to do? I am a broken woman."
"Well, you had your chance," said Baron Hardup. "Now step aside and let Cinderella try on the slipper."
"Cinderella?" said Hyacinth. "Don't be ridiculous. She wasn't even at the ball."
"Well, you never know. The slipper might just fit her anyway," whispered the Baron to his seething wife.
Ridiculous.
The messenger handed Cinderella the slipper and said, "Please try it on. It is my duty to ensure every maiden in the land has this opportunity," he added. "I have been to every home in the land, but failed to find any fair maiden whose foot is the exact fit for this wonderful slipper."
The ugly sisters, Hyacinth and Baron Hardup, gasped with disbelief when it became apparent that the slipper fitted Cinderella's dainty foot perfectly. Buttons simply smiled and winked towards the delighted Cinderella. "Outrageous!" screamed Griselda. "Disgraceful!" cried Imelda. "It's a miscarriage of justice! The slipper is mine! My toenails had grown overnight. That's the only reason the slipper didn't fit." "Griselda and Imelda, you are a disgrace," said Baron Hardup. "You should be pleased for your stepsister." "Yes, you should," said the messenger. "And I am pleased too, for my work is done. I have found the prince's love, and he will be more than pleased with me for finding him the girl of his dreams." Cinderella was taken to meet the prince at the palace. The spark of love was rekindled. They spent their time together, falling more and more in love as the day went on. "I love you so much," said Prince Charming, who produced a ruby ring which he handed to Cinderella whilst going down on one knee. "Will you marry me and be my wife?" asked the prince. "Of course," said Cinderella. The loving couple were married in the palace the very next day and held their reception in the ballroom. "This is where we first met," said Cinderella. "It means so much to me that our wedding reception is here." "I agree," said Prince Charming. "The first time I saw you here in this very room, I knew I was to spend the rest of my life with you." As Baron Hardup hobnobbed with his new friends, King Horatio and his wife, Queen Henrietta, the ugly sisters and their mother tried to put on a brave face. "Well, at least we're closer to royalty than we were before," said Griselda. "I suppose you're right," said Imelda. "We'll just have to get used to the fact that we are second fiddle to Cinderella." Hyacinth agreed. "Now we're in with the royal family, perhaps you two could find a couple of nice knights or even lords. Oh, the sky is the limit." They all lived happily ever after at the palace. Griselda was soon to marry one of the king's guards, and did, eventually, become a little more down to earth. Imelda settled down and married a humble servant of the realm. At Cinderella's request, Buttons was given the job of royal butler. It was whilst carrying out his royal duties he met the royal housekeeper, with whom he fell very much in love. As for Baron Hardup, his relationship with Hyacinth greatly improved. "I'm so pleased that the girls are getting on much better," he said, "and I love our life here at the palace." "I couldn't agree with you more, my darling man," said Hyacinth, as she lay lovingly in her husband's arms. Years later, when the king died, Prince Charming was the natural heir to the throne. On the day he was crowned king and Cinderella queen, they were taken by horse and carriage on a grand procession through the streets of the kingdom. They stopped in one street to wave at the enthusiastic crowd. Cinderella spotted a little old lady waving towards her with a mysterious glint in her eye. "Surely it can't be, but it is. Oh, it's the old woman who turned into my fairy godmother." Without Prince Charming being aware of the old lady's significance, Cinderella called out to her, Thank you so much for changing my life." Then suddenly, right before the happy couple's eyes, the little old lady smiled and then disappeared into thin air.
This is a story that could make you go pale about a big bad wolf in the wood. For this is a story that tells the tale about Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood.
This is the story of Little Red Riding Hood. A long, long time ago, in a vast forest, there lived a young girl known as Little Red Riding Hood. She got her name from her doting grandmother, who had given her a wonderful red riding hood of velvet, which she wore at all times. One fine sunny day, Little Red Riding Hood was playing in the garden of her mother's cottage and thinking fondly of her beloved grandmother, who she had not seen for what seemed like months. Suddenly, her mother appeared at the kitchen door with a large parcel in her hands. "What's in the parcel, Mother?" inquired Little Red Riding Hood inquisitively. "Inside the parcel is a rich and delicious fruit cake for your grandmother," replied her mother, adding, "She is not very well, and the cake is full of goodness. You must take this parcel to your grandmother at once. She will be so pleased to see you, and the cake will revitalize her and make her feel better."
All right, Mummy.
Little Red Riding Hood was sad that her grandmother was poorly, but thrilled that she was to see the old lady she had missed so much of late. "Oh," said the mother, "also in the parcel is a bottle of milk. Do not drop the parcel, for the milk bottle will smash, ruin the cake, and leave nothing for your grandmother to eat or drink."
Oh, golly.
"I understand, Mother. I'll be sure to be careful," replied Little Red Riding Hood, as she took the neatly wrapped parcel from her mother's hand.
Thank you, Mummy.
"Have a safe journey," said Mother, "and remember, just follow the winding path all the way to the other side of the forest. That way you will arrive safely at the front door of your grandmother's house." "I will, Mother," said an excited Little Red Riding Hood, as she kissed her mother on the cheek and bid her farewell. "And remember," said Mother, as her daughter skipped away with parcel in hand, "don't stray from the path."
All right, I'll remember.
However, Little Red Riding Hood knew a shortcut, and she strayed from the winding path in order to cross a rickety old wooden bridge. It was when she reached the other side of the bridge that a wily but seemingly friendly old wolf greeted her.
"Good day, little girl," said the wolf. "You look very fetching in that red riding hood."
"Why, thank you," she replied. "That's very kind of you to say so." Little did she know the wolf was hungry and was already making a plan to gobble her up.
"Where are you going?"
asked the big bad wolf. "I'm off to Grandmother's house because she is poorly," said Little Red Riding Hood as she innocently gazed into the wolf's evil, hungry eyes.
"What's in the parcel?"
the wolf asked, while salivating at the thought of eating the little girl. "Cake and milk," she replied. "My grandmother is sick, but my mother tells me the cake and milk will make her feel better." said the big bad wolf.
"How very thoughtful and kind. Just as a matter of interest, where does your grandmother live?"
Little Red Riding Hood innocently explained to the wolf exactly where her grandmother lived, whilst she picked flowers to form a bouquet for her dear beloved grandmother.
It's not far.
"You're a very good granddaughter," said the sly wolf. "I hope your grandmother makes a speedy recovery."
Thank you.
He said goodbye to Little Red Riding Hood and disappeared into the woods.
"Goodbye, little girl."
Little Red Riding Hood was completely unaware that the wolf was running towards her grandmother's house at a great speed, so that he could eat her too.
"It's my lucky day,"
said the wolf.
"I intend to eat them both. He, 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 he."
The wolf knocked on Grandmother's front door. At first there was no reply, so he knocked a little louder, and trying to imitate Little Red Riding Hood, he said,
"Open up, Grandmother. It's your beloved granddaughter, Little Red Riding Hood. I bring you a parcel containing cake and milk. It will make you feel better and cure you of all ills."
"Lift the latch," called the grandmother. "I'm so weak and sick, I am unable to get out of my bed."
The big bad wolf was delighted and entered the grandmother's house. He walked through the kitchen and up the stairs until he came to Grandmother's bedroom. When he opened the bedroom door, Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother was horrified to see the wolf as he opened up his huge, gaping jaws.
"Leave at once! Help! Help!" she screamed. But it was too late. The wolf had eaten her up.
"Yum, yum, Grandmama was delicious," said the wolf. "But I can't wait for my main course, Little Red Riding Hood. I hope she tastes as delicious as she looks."
He then found some nightclothes whilst rummaging through Grandmother's wardrobe. He put on a gown and a nightcap, and then got into bed and patiently waited for Little Red Riding Hood to arrive at the house. Eventually, Little Red Riding Hood reached her grandmother's house, but she was more than a little surprised to find the door ajar. "Oh dear," she said, "how can this be? It's not like Grandmother to leave the door open. She's always so careful." She crept into the house nervously. "Grandmother, are you there?" she asked. Getting no reply, she knocked at her grandmother's bedroom door 3 times.
"Come," said a voice from the room. "Enter, my dear. I am too sick to get out of my bed."
"All right."
Little Red Riding Hood entered the room, thinking how her grandmother's voice seemed to be somehow different. As she entered, she saw her grandmother lying in the bed with her nightcap pulled over her face, looking very strange indeed. "Oh, Grandmother," she said, "what huge ears you have."
"All the better to hear you with,"
replied the big bad wolf. "And Grandmother, what big eyes you have."
"All the better to see you with," said the cunning, evil, big bad wolf.
"And Grandmother, what large, hairy hands you have."
"All the better to hug you with," said the wolf. "And the hair keeps my hands warm in the cold weather."
"Oh, Grandmother, what huge, sharp teeth you have." Then suddenly the wolf leapt from the bed and let out a mad, evil laugh.
"All the better to eat you with,"
he screamed, and then he swallowed Little Red Riding Hood whole. The wolf was so tired, having eaten Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, that he let out a huge yawn. Then he opened the parcel containing the cake and milk.
Dessert,"
he said, and he ate the cake and washed it down with the milk. The big bad wolf now took a nice, relaxing nap on the bed, and he began to snore very loudly. In fact, his snoring was so loud, it came to the attention of a local huntsman and neighbour who just so happened to be passing by. "That snoring sounds strange," said the huntsman, and he entered the house to check that everything was how it should be. When he entered the bedroom, he saw the big bad wolf lying in the bed. He prodded the wolf with his rifle. The big bad wolf woke up looking startled and scared. "Aha!" said the huntsman. "It's the big bad wolf. I have hunted you for some time, you evil creature, and now I'm going to shoot you so you can never terrorize the people of the forest as you have done for so many years."
"Please spare me," said the wolf. "I promise to change my ways."
But then it occurred to the huntsman that the big bad wolf may have eaten the grandmother, and that there may just be a way of saving her. He knocked the wolf out cold with the butt of the rifle and then produced a pair of scissors. He skillfully snipped open the wolf's stomach and was surprised to see a young girl in a Red Riding Hood.
My goodness.
She sprung out and said, Oh, thank you, kind huntsman. It was so dark and awful inside that wolf." On further inspection, the good huntsman found Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother inside the wolf.
Well, I never.
He pulled her from the wolf, and the grandmother was reunited with her granddaughter at last. "I'm alive and feeling so much better," said the grandmother. She thanked the huntsman and then hugged her granddaughter, who she was so thrilled to see. Feeling hungry, they went to the kitchen, where they sat down at the table and ate a feast of some cake and milk that the huntsman just so happened to be carrying inside his shoulder bag. "That's just what I needed," said the grandmother. "I feel even better now. In fact, I feel as right as rain." Before the huntsman left, he made sure the big bad wolf was well and truly dead before packing its skin into his shoulder bag, thus claiming his well-deserved prize. He bid Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother farewell and told them to be more careful in future. "Always keep your doors locked and never, ever stray away from the path," he added, before leaving to continue his work. "He's right," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I will never stray from the path again." She was true to her word, for on another occasion, Little Red Riding Hood was taking a parcel of cake and milk to her grandmother and was approached by another big bad wolf. He tried desperately to entice the little girl from the path. However, remembering what she had promised her grandmother,
"No, thank you, Mr. Wolf."
she stayed on the path until she reached her destination.
"I'm here."
Little Red Riding Hood stepped inside the house, and the grandmother locked the door with the new locks fitted by the kindly huntsman. Soon afterwards, the second big bad wolf knocked and said,
"Open the door, grandmother. It's me, Little Red Riding Hood. I bring you cake and milk."
When there was no reply, the wolf jumped up on the roof of the house so that when Little Red Riding Hood was leaving, he could pounce on her and gobble her up for tea. The grandmother, however, had seen the big bad wolf jump onto the roof and knew about his deadly intentions.
"I know what he's up to."
With her beloved granddaughter, she hatched a cunning plan and began to fry up some delicious sausages that had been brought to her by the huntsman.
"This'll get him good and proper."
Oh, goody! Once cooked to sizzling perfection, they placed the sausages on a stick and dangled them out of the window at the side of the house, just above a deep lake.
That'll do it.
The smell of the delicious sausages was irresistible to the big bad wolf, who sniffed and sniffed and sniffed, moving gingerly to the side of the house until he slipped and fell into the lake and drowned. At the end of the joyous day, Little Red Riding Hood thanked her grandmother for a wonderful time.
Thank you, Grandma, for a wonderful day.
She then skipped home to her mother's cottage, not once straying from the path. And from that day on, no one ever did anything to try and harm Little Red Riding Hood again.
Three little piggies went out to the woods. One built a house made of straw. The second used sticks and the third used bricks. And came the big bad wolf at the door. Throughout the tale you will learn much more.
A long, long time ago, there were 3 little pigs. And the 3 little pigs all lived in a tiny house with their mother, who loved them very, very much. However, one day their mother sat them down to breakfast and made an important announcement. You are all now too big to live in my small house, she said. So, it's time for you all to go out into the forest and to take care of yourselves. It is very important that you build your houses as soon as possible, because then you will all be safe from the big bad wolf. And as the 3 loved ones set off into the forest, their mother shed a tear and said to herself, I just hope the big bad wolf don't catch them before they build their houses. And the 3 little pigs gingerly walked down into the forest along a winding footpath. And it was by a weeping willow tree that they met a strange, spindly old hag with a shock of straw hair that reached the sky. Please, old hag, old woman, please may I cut some of your straw hair off? Asked the first little pig. You see, I need to build a home as soon as possible so that I don't get eaten by the big bad wolf, and I could use the leftover straw to build my dream home, you see. Well, as it happens, yeah, I could do with a trim, yeah, replied the old hag. So the first little pig flattered the old hag into having a short back and sides, thus ensuring that he had enough straw to build his house. Oh, I am so pleased with my house, said the first little pig. The big bad wolf won't catch me now. It looks very nice, said the second little pig, but the house I build will be stronger than yours, and mine will be even stronger, boasted the third little pig. Anyway, the second and the third little pigs went about their travels, and whilst crossing a rickety old footbridge, they met a giant insect made of sticks. Hello, excuse me, giant stick insect, said the second little pig. You have given me an idea. You see, I need to build myself a house, and perhaps I could make it out of sticks. Well, now, that's an interesting thing you should say there. You are in luck, as it happens, said the giant stick insect, because I am about to molt. And as he did so, he left enough sticks for the second little pig to build the house of his dreams. The big bad wolf won't catch me now, said the second little pig with a chuffed and slightly smug smile on his face. Good, said the slightly leaner giant stick insect as he trundled off over the rickety bridge. Well, it's very nice, said the third little pig, but I can assure you my house will be so much stronger than yours. And he wandered off into the forest alone. In almost no time at all, the third little pig had bumped into a young man building a wall. Hi, said the third little pig, and what's your name? Well, my name is Adrian, replied the young man, and I am building Adrian's wall. Yeah, get that. "Oh, how great," said the third little pig. "Now listen, it's a bit cheeky, but if I help you to build that wall, may I have some of the leftover bricks to build my house so that I can be safe from the big bad wolf?" requested the third little pig. "Oh, well, of course," said Adrian. And the third little pig helped to build the famous Adrian's Wall and was granted enough bricks to build his dream home. "Ah, the big bad wolf can never catch me now," he said, as he looked at his big, sturdy house with a feeling of pride and joy. Anyway, a week later, the big bad wolf spotted the house of straw. The smell of the first little pig made him hungry, and he knocked on the door, and he says, "Hey, let me in, little pig. Let me come in now. I want to welcome you, obviously, to the neighborhood." Through the little letterbox, the first little pig cried, "No, no, by the hair of my chinny chin chin, I will not let you in." "Then I will huff, and I will puff, and I will blow your house in," growled the increasingly menacing big bad wolf. And that's exactly what he did. He picked up the first little pig and he gobbled him up in a matter of seconds. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. Oh, but I'm still very hungry indeed, said the big bad wolf. And so the wolf continued on his travels through the forest. And as he did, he spotted the house that the second little pig had built with sticks. I can smell another little piggy, thought the wolf. And he banged on the door. Please, open the door, little piggy. I want to come in. I'm a nice, very nice big bad wolf, and it's so cold out here, said the big bad wolf. No way, the second little pig said from the bedroom window. By the hair of my chinny chin chin, I will not let you in. Oh, really? Well, then I shall huff, and I shall puff, and I shall blow your house in, growled the big bad wolf, showing all of his big, sharp teeth. And he blew, until all the sticks fell down. And then the big bad wolf grabbed the second little pig and gobbled him up in no time at all. And now it was not very long before the big bad wolf, the very same one, chanced upon the house of bricks built by the third little pig. And as he banged on that door, the big bad wolf said, "Come on, little piggy wiggy wiggy, let me in, because I bring a newsletter from the neighborhood watch." "Absolutely not," said the third little pig as he peered from a window in the attic. No, by the hair of my chinny chin chin, I will not let you in. Then I will huff, and I will puff, and I will blow your house in, snarled the big bad wolf. And he huffed, and he puffed, but when he blew, nothing happened at all. "Drat!" said the big bad wolf. "That brick house is too strong for me. I must do something very brainy and clever. And that's what I'll do. I shall befriend this clever little piggy. Little piggy," he said, changing his tone, "to welcome you to the community, I would like to take you to my allotment on the other side of the rickety bridge, and there I will help you fill your basket with as many vegetables as you like, so you can make a huge stew, which will be simply delicious. So, be there at 9 o'clock sharp, okay?" "Well, it sounds like a good plan to me," said the third little pig. "I will see you there tomorrow morning." "Okie dokie then, I look forward to it then, my new friend," said the big bad wolf, thinking he'd planned the perfect crime. But the third little pig wasn't stupid. He knew the big bad wolf wanted to gobble him up. So the next morning, he arrived at the allotment at 8 o'clock and filled up his basket with as many vegetables as possible. And when the big bad wolf arrived at 9 o'clock, he was furious to see all of his vegetables gone. Ah, that clever little piggy-wiggy has tricked me. But I must go to his house and still pretend to be his friend. So he knocked on the door of the third little pig's house. Little piggy, my friend, answer the door, he said smarmily. And when the third little pig looked through the attic window, he said, sorry, I'm too busy peeling the vegetables, but thank you so much for my housewarming gift. Your allotment is wonderful. No problem, said the fuming wolf. So be ready tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I have a treat for you. I will take you to an orchard by the babbling stream on the other side of the hill, and there I will help you pick some of the best Granny Smith's apples you have ever tasted. Sure enough, the next morning, the third little pig arrived at the orchard at 7 o'clock and climbed up a tree and helped himself to some scrumptious Granny Smith apples. But suddenly, the big bad wolf appeared, causing the little pig to be very frightened indeed. Oh, hello, Mr. Wolf, said the little pig, pretending not to be scared. Would you like some apples? And before the wolf could respond, the little pig pelted the big bad wolf with loads and loads and loads of apples, knocking him out cold. And as the terrified little pig started to run home with apples in his hand, he passed a fun fair, which made him feel so excited that he just could not resist trying his luck on the coconut shy, where he won a lovely bunch of coconuts. But unfortunately, the wolf had gained consciousness and was catching up with his latest prey. I'm going to get you, little piggy, he snarled. But the quick-thinking little pig hurled 2 enormous coconuts at the wolf, causing him to lose his balance and land in a huge barrel of sticky cream cheese. And as he came around, the wolf seethed, he will pay for this. I hate cheese. It stinks, and my head is sore. But by now, the little pig was safely back inside his house. So the wolf banged on the little pig's door and shouted, how dare you steal all my vegetables and throw apples and coconuts at me and cause me to become cheesy? I am going to climb down your chimney and I am going to gobble you up, third little piggy. But the third little piggy didn't panic. No, he had an idea. He started to boil a huge cauldron of water in the fireplace, and into it he put all of the vegetables from the wolf's allotment, the Granny Smith's apples from the orchard, and the milk from the coconuts he won at the fair. The big bad wolf climbed to the roof of the house. Now I'm going to get you, laughed the wolf. Unfortunately, the big bad wolf slipped and slithered down the chimney, faster and faster, until plop, with a big splash, he tumbled head first into the boiling water, along with the vegetables, the Granny Smith's apples, and the coconut milk. Adding salt and pepper to the simmering cauldron, the clever little pig smiled to himself. Now, I really do have a delicious stew with wonderful organic ingredients, and the cream cheese from the barrel is an added bonus. And what's more, I will never have to be afraid of the big bad wolf again. Well, over the next few years, the recipe for the third little pig stew became so famous that birds were tweeting it from the treetops. Consequently, the woodland creatures came from far and wide to meet the third little piggy, who was now basking in the glory of his newfound fame. After all, he had become a celebrity chef. Piggy.
With a fee-fi-fo and a hey and a ho and a fiddle and a diddle and a rhyme, the tale you're gonna hear happened such a long time ago. Once upon a time, once upon a time. This is the story of the Hare and the Tortoise. Once upon a time, in a forest far away, there lived a hare called Hare. He was a very boastful hare and very proud that he could outrun all of his fellow woodland creatures.
I'm the fastest creature in the forest by far. Yeah, no one can outrun me. How do you know you're the fastest?
Asked Wurzel the Weasel.
Here, one day he's going to come unstuck with your boasting, so you are.
He's right, said Cheryl the Chipmunk. One day, all that sure enough's going to backfire on you. But I'll have to admit you're a very fast runner indeed.
Oh, I know that,
said the hare.
That's why none of you creatures want to challenge me to a race.
Then suddenly, a tortoise called Ozzy stepped forward. Hang about, mate, hang about. I'll challenge you to a race, Harry. I'm sure if I tried on, I could outrun you. Laughed Harry the hare.
Yeah, of all the creatures in the forest, I would hardly have expected you to challenge me to a race. Yeah, but of course, I'll accept your challenge. Yeah, but I'm going to win hands down, and you're going to be humiliated.
He said with a very smug grin on his face.
I will arrange the race, said Brucey the barn owl. I suggest everyone gathers by the babbling brook to witness the race between the hare and the tortoise.
Well, the next day, all the woodland creatures met at the babbling brook. Harry the hare and Ozzy the tortoise both stood by the brook as Brucey announced the rules of the race.
Nice to see you. Nice! Good game. After I say ready, steady, go, the race will commence,
said Brucey.
The hare and the tortoise will race all the way to the old oak tree and then back to the babbling brook. The first one back will be the winner, and he will receive his golden trophy, which I have prepared.
And he held up a golden cup, which looked very impressive indeed. said Ronnie Woodpecker.
That trophy looks amazing.
It certainly does. I wonder who's going to win,
said Cheryl the Chipmunk.
Well, we're soon going to find out,
said Brucey. Then he uttered the words,
ready, steady, go!
Within about 30 seconds, the enthusiastic hare was out of sight. Ozzy the tortoise, on the other hand, was incredibly slow to get going.
Come on, Ozzy, give it your best shot,
said Ronnie.
Yeah, come on, go for it, son. We don't want Harry the hare to win. He's far too boastful,
said Cheryl. When Harry the hare reached the oak tree, he said to himself,
Yeah. I'm winning with such ease. Yeah, it's simple. Yeah, I'm going to give that stupid tortoise a chance. In fact, I'm going to have a little nap. Yeah.
As Harry the hare took his 40 winks, he dreamt of winning the magnificent prize. He could almost hear the crowd cheering as Brucey presented him with the golden cup, which he was holding up to his cheering fans.
Yeah. Thanks, fans,
said the hare in his dream.
Yeah. I told you I was the fastest of them all. Yeah.
Meanwhile, as Harry the hare continued to dream of his newfound fame spreading across the globe, Ozzy trundled along to the old oak tree. Then he steadily headed back to the babbling brook. Remarkably, the modest tortoise reached the finishing destination before Harry the hare had finished his dream. The crowd whooped and cheered with delight. They were so loud they managed to wake up Harry the hare from his deep sleep. At first, Harry thought that all the cheering he could hear in the distance was still part of his amazing dream.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you once again, my fans. Thank you, he said.
But then he began to realise he was wide awake, and somehow he had managed to lose the race. Harry the hare ran back to the babbling brook just in time to witness Ozzy the tortoise being presented with the golden cup.
It's not fair,
shouted Harry. Ozzy the Tortoise cheated. Yeah, I can assure you, he didn't get as far as the old oak tree. He just turned around. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. You are so wrong, said Brucey. I was checking with my telescope to make sure that nobody was cheating. Ozzy the Tortoise has won fair and square, proving once and for all that the forest has got talent.
Yeah, quite right,
said Ronnie.
The talent in this case is Ozzy the Tortoise. As for Harry the Hare, he needs a good spell in the boot camp.
I couldn't agree more. There's nothing worse than a cheat and a liar, said Cheryl the Chipmunk. I'm no cheat. This is a fix. I am the fastest woodland creature in the forest, and deep down you know it. Yeah, said Harry the Hare. Well, there's only one thing I simply can't bear, and that is a bad loser, remarked Brucey. And as Ozzy the Tortoise did the lap of honour around the forest, with his golden trophy in his hand, Harry the Hare slunk away, never to be seen again. This is the best day of my life, said Ozzy the Tortoise, and his newfound fans continued to cheer with all their might. Hello, Brucey the Barn Owl here with my final thought. Never be boastful like Harry the Hare, for he came a right cropper because he became so complacent he just couldn't compare to a triumphant tortoise called Ozzy. To be confident's fine, but one must draw the line. Don't be arrogant, there's no excuse. Don't show off or proclaim just for glory and fame. Take my word, I'm a barn owl called Bruce. Take good care of yourselves and each other. With a fee-fi-fo and a hey and a ho and a fiddle and a diddle and a rhyme, the tale you're gonna hear happened such a long time ago. Once upon a time, once upon a time.